Your president is watching. America is watching. But more important, Godfather is watching. Make no mistake, there will be no fuck-ups. Marines around this world would give they left nuts to be where you are. Anybody not want to go? Marines, kill on 3. 1, 2, 3. Kill!
The shot around the world shook the earth with great resound. Lanterns lit, the riders fled to warn the farms and towns. The call to arms united them in grim determination. They vowed to see the eagle born and made their declaration. Honor bound and bred, they stood as one in their defiance. A continental army raised on common man's alliance. For liberty, the fire in the hearts of men did forge. The will to break their shackles free and shape them into swords. Machine with a hunger deep, I'll scorch the earth with a mighty shriek and a million full metal jacket teeth. You better believe it when the boot comes down, the blood I spill on the battleground will soak the earth until the wicked drown in the death I deal when the hate comes out. Born to the beating of the drums of war, shaped in the fire and valley forge, made hard in the waters of the beach I tore from the devil's claws in 44. Thunder cracked and the enemy dies when the barrel spits, the fire flies. It's on point, they're killing time, and I kill with a heart like Arctic ice.
I am a soldier and I'm marching on.
I am a soldier and I'm marching on.
I am a warrior, this is my song.
welcome to Cold War Radio, ladies and gentlemen, live from studio number 1 in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I'm Hutch Bailey Jr., your host deep down in the broadcast bunker. Please follow me on Spreaker, like the Facebook page, facebook.com/Cold War Radio 22. The email to the program, scrtv@live.com. Cold War Radio patron hotline, 412-206-6208. Still waiting for any podcast listeners to drop a voicemail at 412-567-1460. You can catch the podcast just about anywhere that podcasts are aggregated. You can listen to it streamed in the morning at the405media.com, on demand at iHeartRadio. Always go to the Cold War Radio app, free in your app store. YouTube's still playing the show, fully transcribed with captions. If you know anyone with hearing difficulties, please use the hashtag CWR on Twitter to be connected with other listeners. And go to steelcityresistance.com, where you can become a Cold War Radio patron. The best thing you could do for the show. Catch the research room that has links to just a large amount of information. The video page, where you can catch links to the video for audio clips we play on the radio show. If you'd like to write to the program, please write to Cold War Radio, P.O. Box 10433, 370 Castle Shannon Boulevard, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, 15234. All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's introduce the dream team. Let's traverse the turret due south from studio number 1 down to the Empire City of the South, the home of varsity hot dogs. Miss Stacy Rush from Atlanta, Georgia. Good evening.
Good evening, Hutch Bailey Jr. and Sal. I'm glad to be with you guys tonight. Looking forward to an interesting conversation. Lots going on.
Yeah, this is going to be a good one. Let's swing back over to the west and say hello to Sal from Allegheny County. Good evening, Sal.
Stacy, Hutch, how are you guys doing tonight? I'm doing well. Yes, we survived the president's visit today. I was hoping to see Air Force One, but unfortunately I was in the wrong view, so I did not.
You didn't? I've seen it several times. I used to work right across the street from the old Pittsburgh International Airport, which is where Air Force One lands. And it's pretty interesting. You could actually see it just parked there. It's amazing. I mean, these things, I've seen so many of them because I worked there pretty long, and it was mainly Obama, but I saw George Bush too. But the motorcade keeps getting bigger. It keeps getting more specialized equipment in it, and they block the interstate exits all the way down through. So it's an interesting situation. But I can't, while we're on that subject, our mayor, Sal, decided, now, I've lived here for a long time. I didn't live here for a long time, too, but I've lived here long enough that I've seen a lot of famous people come here, and you have as well. I've never seen them close schools for something like this before. That to me, that was a political move by Peduto. Maybe it wasn't, but I mean, they have Steeler games here. There's more people at a Steeler game than any presidential anything.
I just think, I'm not going to make excuses, but I think they were just being a little bit more on the cautious side, given that there was the potential for a lot of protesters here and for them to hold up traffic and for them to start early in the morning and then for kids to have a tougher time to get to school, because a lot of the kids people don't know, the kids that go to the city schools have to use public transportation, and the usual hub for those buses is in the city.
That's
so
true.
They all rotate in the city. I'm not making an excuse for leadership, but perhaps maybe they thought a little bit. Maybe it was just best that they not be downtown. For myself, I actually chose not to be downtown as well. I didn't think I would really have a hard time getting up early in the morning and getting into downtown, but I was thinking possibly this afternoon if unrest came to rear its ugly head, I didn't want to stick around. So.
There's not enough people in this town to do that. I think they had 200 protesters and probably 100 of them were kids. I mean, protests don't work here. They never have. And I like that about this city. I do. The cops were out there and they were on horseback, baby. Go ahead and try something.
Go ahead and try something. I know that they did block a little bit of traffic and there were some arrests this morning, and that may or may not have affected me. But I just didn't want to take a chance and.
Oh, I don't blame you. I don't blame you at all. Ladies and gentlemen, the program is now also, as of today, on Podcast Addict. I didn't realize this, but Podcast Addict is the biggest aggregator of podcasts. I did not know that. But Spreaker let me know in an email, so I jumped on that bandwagon. We already had one listener from there in like a couple hours. That's a good deal. Just a little inside baseball stuff. Now, Stacy, something that I was praying was going to happen has happened. In Utah, there was a poll recently, and Mitt Romney, or Pierre Delecto, and Mike Lee are both underwater, and they both have negative approval ratings, and I'd like to see them both replaced. I don't know. I mean, Mike Lee's one of those controversial figures that I don't have time for anymore. He's like Rand Paul. Rand Paul does good nine times, but that 10th one is always the one that sinks him with me. So I don't know. I know that Romney's worthless. I mean, he's hopeless. But Mike Lee, I had better aspirations for him. I thought he was going to do better, but he's turned out to be India's man.
I think he's more of those. He's more like the Glenn Beck type that thinks he's holier than thou. So he has such a problem with Trump's style, I think. But other than that, typically, I find him tolerable. I guess my concern is though. Do you think Utah would be able to replace them with Republicans, or do you think that they would be replaced with Democrats? That's my only concern, and I don't care what Mittens is replaced with because he is a Democrat, right? So he doesn't. That doesn't matter.
No, I don't know. I think Utah is a pretty solid Republican state. That being said, I mean, you never know what's going to happen, and I think
the reason I ask that is because Mittens is not really a conservative. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So that was my concern with his career being ruined, and hearing that Mike Lee is underwater. So that's why I bring that up.
I think his strength in Utah is his religion. I think. I think that's what got him over the top there. Yeah. He's a grand poobah in the Mormon faith.
Right.
He's a minister or whatever they call him.
I can't get over. He is probably so thrilled that so many other things, that Trump said the word lynch. I mean, I bet he couldn't be happier than that occurred, because it was all Romney all the time, and then Trump said he was being lynched, and then we had to hear about what a racist Trump is all the livelong day. But I keep wondering. Like, do you think Mittens has some hustle on the side, like Anthony Weiner, or do you think it was
maybe
just to promote his so fragile ego?
The dude is entirely too clean for me. I mean, there's something in his portfolio, in his dossier,
and his binders filled with women that might.
and really, who puts a dog on the roof, man? I mean, that was bizarre. That was even bizarre for him. I mean, but I supported him, Sal, and I had his sign in my yard, and I wanted him to win at the time. But isn't it amazing that all these people they put up in front of us end up being such duds? McCain is going to go down in history as a traitor. I mean, I'm telling you that. It might not be there yet. But ever wonder why Lindsey Graham isn't doing anything with these subpoenas? We'll get to that later. But I don't know. We'll see. The thing with Mike Lee is the whole outsourcing labor to India thing. I mean, when I saw that rally out in front of his office that was all Indians and him, And it's like, what did you just do? You know, what our people can't get the jobs for? It's unbelievable. That being said, Sal, Elizabeth Warren, after a day or two on the top, has sunk to third place among the Democrats. Joe Biden jumped 10 points with Democrats. Over 1/3 support him. I mean, what's their future?
I guess it's going to be an old white guy, right? Looking that way, isn't it?
Certainly is.
Yeah, sure, looking like an old white guy. Don't know what he really brings to the table that's anything new. And
how
I know
did his rating go up? How? I mean, he's got scandal coming out the yin yang, and his performance at the debate was abysmal.
Oh, it was horrible. I felt sorry for the guy.
I know. I just these polls have to be made up.
And yeah, Stacy, I think you hit the nail on the head there. Do we really believe these polls? Who's pumping them? Where are they coming from? Is this just to give people to just let it go? Or are they giving some false alarms here? Or actually, I don't know if false alarms is the right word there, but is this all just a play?
Okay, I maybe I can answer that real quickly. Hutch, did you say who sponsored the poll?
Not that poll, but another poll, and something that I wanted to warn the audience about is don't even listen to these polls.
Yeah.
Murky methodology. CNN polls adults, not voters, on Trump impeachment. Adults, not voters. Think about that. I mean, and this is what they're doing all over the place. All
Absolutely.
They're trying to do, they're trying to separate Trump from his base.
Yeah,
that's the plan.
100%. I mean, honestly, it's like psyops. You know, that's what the media is actually doing right now with all of these polls and trying to get people down, trying to get people. You know, I'm sure they've done psychology on some group think, and so if you're hearing the same thing over and over again, I imagine that there are plenty of studies that say, oh, well, I don't want to be the only one left standing supporting Trump. Clearly, everyone wants him impeached, you know? And so I think the polls are just complete BS, absolute BS. And my thought process on Biden's increase is potentially that Warren did so well. Everything that I read, I didn't watch any of it, but everything I read said that she really came out the winner of that debate. And you know how badly Wall Street does not want her.
Wall Street, Silicon Valley, anybody with a company. She's horrible.
If they're paying advertisement and these, you know, and these media, corporate-owned media conglomerates, you know, I think that's where you're getting the figure that he had some magical bump after that because they want to try and stop her momentum.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, she terrifies. Even Facebook doesn't like her. I mean, she's poison, and I don't think she'll ever be the nominee. I don't think Bernie Sanders will either. I think the Democrat Party will stop both of those two, and I think they'll go to great heights.
I think they're going to get behind Buttigieg pretty
I was thinking
soon.
that too. I was thinking that too.
My guess.
Yep, I've been hearing that myself. And he's a soup sandwich. I mean, he's horrible too.
They're all horrible. Tulsi Gabbard, as much as what's going on with her, she's terrible too. I mean, I like her the best out of them, but she's a socialist. How can you be Miss I Love America? Give me a break.
How can you be a military officer? How can you be an army officer and be a communist like that? Mm-hmm. I skip right over to socialist. They want to take my guns. That's communist. You know, and they're all for it. And thank God for Beto O'Rourke for bringing it out. Because they can never argue any other way again, in my opinion. They never could anyway, but it's easier when they're out there saying it like that. I mean, it's terrible the way these people think, and to have any kind of percentage.
Hey, whoa, stop. They don't think. They don't think. It's all emotion. It's all what gets the most attention. They aren't thinking at all.
That's the voters, but the politicians are thinking. They've been thinking about this for 50 years. This is just, they blew it. These young people came out, these AOCs. I'll tell you about AOC, too. And later on, well, I might as well just say it now, if I can find it here. Rashida Tlaib is going to be with Bernie Sanders when he goes to Detroit. And what this is what the squad is. The squad is a bunch of young gold diggers. That's what they are. AOC brought Bernie Sanders into her district and filled the place up with white people. Now you have Rashida Tlaib is going to do the same thing in Detroit, and these people are just waiting for this guy to kick the bucket, and they're going to take over his voters. Mm-hmm. That's what it is. I'm telling you. You are
100% nail on the head. I mean, how
they're not carpetbaggers; they're casket baggers.
Yeah.
Yep, that's what's happening. I think, and they're getting. Damn, our young people. We need to slap these kids upside the head, man. They ought to have a draft or something to make these kids get out in the world and look at what these policies do to other people. It's ugly, man. It's not even. I saw something today. I saw a food truck, a very elaborate, expensive food truck for Venezuelan food. I'm thinking, what? You better drive that down to Venezuela and feed some of your people down there.
They made it though. They're never coming. They're never going back.
Oh hell
never
no.
Going back.
No. All right. So, according to ICE officials, I love this. 4 executives at the sheet metal KSO Metal Fab Inc. manufacturing plant in Streamwood, Illinois, a suburb of Chicago, have been charged with 1 count each of knowingly harboring illegal aliens and 1 count each of knowingly hiring illegal aliens. Now, I don't know what the penalties are for that, but it's about damn time. They could stop this. They could nip this right in the bud if they put some kind of a tariff on any money traveling electronically from the United States from an individual to another country. Because if you go into any Mexican neighborhood and you look at the bodegas, the little shops that they destroy, the little shops that they buy off somebody, and now the next thing you know, the windows are blown out of it and there's plywood in the windows instead of glass, and there's posters up on the outside of it on how to send your money via Western Union. I think there's ways to combat this. I heard, Sal, that the biggest gross national product, the biggest percentage of that in Mexico is America, is cash coming in from Mexican nationals or otherwise into Mexico from the United States, robbing it right out of our economy and sending it there.
Yeah, I haven't heard that. I don't know what type of money laundering laws or bank secrecy laws that they have in Mexico, but it may be a little laxer than our laws, and it allows money to flow into their country from ours.
And it seems like that's like the cottage industry of these stores. It's you just go up into Beachview and a couple places in Oakland. You go through there, and you see the big posters. I mean, it's pretty apparent what's going on. Now, there's some other things going on there too, but that's I like it when we fight back like that. If you have a business in the United States of America and you are hiring illegal aliens, personally, I'd like to see your business shut down. Mm-hmm. I think that is criminal to me.
And I think you hit the nail on the head. The way to prevent most things is all about the money. So you can, if you start surcharging or applying fees to money that's leaving here and going to Mexico, or if you have some sort of repercussion, whether it's financial or someone being charged with harboring an illegal alien, you can make a dent in this. Because people are going to preserve themselves, preserve their business. And if there are huge financial consequences for these businesses for hiring illegals, if there are financial consequences for breaking the law here and sending your money back over to Mexico, then I think that we do see another way, almost like Trump is managing his foreign policy through economics.
Yeah, it is all about the money. I don't know if you guys saw the case about the airline people who were bringing money in, and I'm wondering what the bottom of that story is and why they were bringing money in and where it was going. I don't know if you guys saw that as well, but yes, it's all about the money.
Well, almost all of this is. I mean, when you look at the corruption and you look at and after our guest, we're going to really get into this. I want to talk about some things that are going on that are probably not going to be real popular to talk about, but this whole morass, a lot of it's about the money, and it always is. It never fails. It's about money or power, and this is a reason. You look at this NBA thing, and it's not just the NBA; it's every corporation in the United States, in the free world, actually, not just the United States, and in the not so free world. But this is why religion and faith and morality is so important to our survival, because there has to be something in your life. There has to be something in your DNA, something in your patriotic being that is more powerful than money. Mm-hmm. If money is the most powerful thing in your life, you are wrong. You are wrong, and you got to be lonely. Mm-hmm. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but there's not an amount of money that you could pay me to get me to go against my own country. That's not going to happen. You know, and I'm not a Bible thumping person or anything like that, but my country's more important to me than money.
I know, and Hutch, I hear you loud and clear, and it's funny that you're kind of bringing this up tonight, because I was just thinking about that today. I've been seeing a lot of posts about Benghazi coming up recently, and you know, going back to that situation and thinking about, you know, these warmongers who you know, want to send troops into Syria, you know, send troops into Iraq, send troops to Afghanistan, and take over a country. Let's use Libya as an example, where Hillary Clinton decided she wanted to topple Gaddafi. She essentially, in my opinion, and I think, and I'm asking you guys this question, they do this in order to decimate a country, go into it, and enrich themselves and their friends with rebuilding. So they're either on the front side of it with selling some sort of arms or being in some sort of industry that's going to benefit from a war, or they're in it for the benefit of after and going in and, you know, constructing new homes and schools and et cetera, et cetera. I think a lot of these decisions like that are driven by money. And it was on my mind today, and it's concerning.
Well, I'm glad it was on your mind, because it was on my mind too. And in the next hour, if you could stick around a little bit, I really want to get into that, especially the Benghazi part of it, because that's where a lot of this stuff started. And you brought out some really good information that I'm going to talk about. But right now, ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure. John O'Connor is an experienced trial lawyer practicing law in San Francisco since 1972. He's tried cases in state and federal court throughout the country. He's been on the program before. Welcome back to Cold War Radio, Mr. John O'Connor.
Hey, how you doing, Hutch? Good to be with you again.
Well, thank you very much. I have my dream team of co-hosts. I have Stacy Rush in Atlanta, and I have, almost blew it, Sal. I got Sal in Allegheny County. And we're glad to have you on. Let's get right into it, and we'll talk about your book in a minute. But I want to talk about the situation that's going on right now with the recent announcement of the DOJ expanding the origins of the Russia probe, and you know, the intramural battle, it seems, that's brewing between the CIA and the DOJ and the FBI. With CIA officials actually hiring lawyers. What's your oversight on all this?
Well, yeah,
good.
Yeah. I mean, that's a good question, Hutch. I have long thought that the CIA faced criminal liability, specifically John Brennan and people around him. They started this investigation and tried to dig up predication for this FISA warrant, knowing that they were the ones who were simply cooking it up themselves in the guise of it coming elsewhere. Let me give you the first example. When they decided to cook up some sort of Russia hook, they sent in Joseph Mifsud, the Maltese professor that was supposedly a Russian agent, and they sent him in to try to infiltrate the good graces of George Papadopoulos. And then, of course, Mifsud came in and said that he would fix up Papadopoulos with Putin's niece, and that he would set him up with a guy named Timofeyev, a Russian think tank guy, and tried to do all kinds of things to be very Russian. And so it was this guy that supposedly was a Russian agent. And then, of course, he made a big show of flying to Moscow right after that. Well, I think what Barr and Durham are finding out, or probably have known for some time, is that Mifsud is a Western agent. There's no doubt about it. It takes a 12-year-old about 5 minutes to go on the internet and find out that one of his best professional friends and cohorts and colleagues is a woman by the name of Claire Smith. They even taught a class together at Link University in Rome in which they talked about vetting people for security purposes. In other words, figuring out who's an agent and who's not. Claire Smith is the leading vetting person in the UK. The UK intelligence was John Brennan's partner in this. So it's pretty clear that Claire Smith's friend, Joseph Mifsud, was sent in to try to stir up some, as an agent provocateur. And then, of course, then they brought in the Australian guy, the Australian intelligence guy, Alexander Downer, to then try to get Papadopoulos into a few drinks and try to talk about dirt on the Russians, and then they try to make a big deal of this. My point is, these guys knew from the very beginning that there was nothing there, and they tried to cook it up. They knew, so if they knew that, and they knew this FISA application, the original FISA application was failing, that they had one, that nobody talks about that anymore, but it was failing around May of 2016. Then they get the Steele dossier going, which is phony. The two people working on the Steele dossier were a cutout from UK intelligence, that's Christopher Steele, and a cutout from CIA intelligence, Nellie Orr, who happened to be a CIA contract agent.
But she was going to get a ham radio license so she could really communicate.
Right, and
just
maybe
a sidebar.
Communicate without anybody listening in on all the stuff that she was saying that maybe she didn't want anybody to hear for various reasons. So my point is, when they really drill down at this, and I'm sure all these agencies are scurrying, they're objecting on the grounds of classified information and all this and that, it's going to turn out that this was, all these guys were together to create a big smoke screen to try to get a FISA warrant. Once they got a false FISA warrant, they were sure they were going to catch Trump in some kind of wrongdoing, and then it doesn't matter how the investigation started, they got their evidence. This is one of the things that some civil libertarians, including Mark Felt, by the way, Mark Felt had strong feelings about this. He thought that the government should be able to do these searches, these FISA searches. As a matter of fact, FISA was started because of Mark Felt's case. He thought you should be able to do FISA searches, but if you got evidence that led to a criminal investigation, you could not use it if it was not obtained in a regular constitutional Fourth Amendment sense. However, the law has gotten much more liberal since Mark Felt was prosecuted. They now say, okay, you can go get a warrant on somebody without probable cause under the Fourth Amendment for counterintelligence purposes, for national security purposes. You think Hutch Bailey's a Russian agent, and then, oh, lo and behold, you find out he didn't pay his taxes. Well, you can use that information to go, prosecute Hutch, even though you couldn't have gotten a warrant otherwise on him. So this was a big scam from the beginning, and once they get into this, they should be able to see that everybody involved knew that it was and knew that there were falsities in that FISA application. I'll shut up for a minute, but I'll tell you one more thing, Hutch.
Oh, don't shut up.
James,
I didn't bring you on here to shut up.
Okay. Recently, and I can't remember whether it was the Times or the Post, I want to say the New York Times, James Comey, knowing that this investigation was going on, wrote an op-ed, and somewhere in the op-ed, he talks about Papadopoulos being approached by a Russian agent. Well, we now know that Joseph Mifsud is not a Russian agent, but he put that in there because I'm sure that when good old honest Jim is examined about this, he's going to say, why, by gosh, I thought he was a Russian agent. I was told this by the CIA. I thought he was. Gee, am I wrong?
John, I got to say, and I'm going to turn this over to Stacy in a minute, but what this shows me, and I want your opinion on this, because we've been led to believe, and I certainly believed, that the CIA was this top-notch operation, this agency that just, it was like Get Smart and Agent 86 and 99 and everything else. But when you have a CIA operative that considers using a ham radio, which anybody in the entire world can hear what you're saying, as being, I am a ham radio operator myself, and for somebody to even consider that is just foolish to me. Are these people any good at what they do?
Well, I'll tell you what they were doing. I see the ham radio different. I see it that Nellie Orr did not want the normal security monitoring that might occur for other communications. In other words, it's one thing to have John O'Connor happen over here or Hutch Bailey over here her ham radio talk, but at least the intelligence services are not out there monitoring for the ham radio. See what I mean? In other words,
some of them
if I'm an intelligence official, and I'm, for instance, calling Bruce Orr at the Justice Department, somebody there is going to be tapping me, okay? You're subject to some sort of monitoring. You may not get everything monitored. So I think that's what she was doing. I see it as not as incompetence, but as an admission of the need to speak completely off the record about the BS that she was doing. And I think it is just despicable. And nobody has ever thought about the fact, listen to this now, Hillary Clinton didn't just all of a sudden wake up one day and say, my gosh, let's investigate Donald Trump for Russian collusion. Brennan had been looking at this since December of 15, supposedly got a really better tip March of 2016 from Estonia or someplace. But the point is that they didn't just come up with this. They were put up to this by the CIA and FBI so that then they could act like this reputable third party, then they were the confidential informant. So when they go to FISA, they say our CI or confidential informant is this really wonderful guy, and he's given us great information in the past. They make it look like he's this third party unconnected to them. Well, he's not. He's their cutout. It's like me getting my law partner to be my witness and claiming that he's really somebody else. That's what they're doing. Yeah.
And I think one of the things, too, that it has been just such a huge part of this entire story and of Trump's entire presidency is the media's collusion with all of this. With the fact...
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, keep going. This is my bit, and I love it. It's music to my ears. Keep going. I'm sorry.
And honestly, that's kind of what I wanted your opinion on, because your book is talking about how the Washington Post actually covered up Watergate. So I wanted to hear more about that. But I'm honestly, I'm just blown away by either the incompetence of the media or the complicity of the media in this situation with Trump. Because there was one source, there was one dossier, and they tried to plant it everywhere to make it sound like it was coming from more than one place, and it simply was not.
Right, and even that, the information in the dossier was clearly the information in the dossier was clearly phony itself and flimsy. The guy had to make multiple sources up in the dossier. Sources D&E were the same person, the Sergey Millian, who the only thing he'd ever done is take a photo op with Trump in 2007 in Florida. He knew nothing about anything. The CIA should have known that. The FBI knew it. And he was a phony witness as well. And your point is well taken. These guys would not have done it unless they knew they were going to be shielded by the media. And I call it's a triangle in my mind. One part of the triangle is ignorance. One part is partisan and one part is dishonest. And it's hard at any point to tell which of those three factors prevails. Maybe it's a combination of all three. But let me give you an example. There's a statement, CNN's talking about this terrible thing Trump's done with this call to Zelensky. And we see this little fact check on the screen. Hunter Biden and Joe Biden have done absolutely nothing wrong in
I saw that.
Ukraine. I mean, my God, the New York Times has said the same thing. USA Today has said it. Everyone says it. Oh, there's absolutely no evidence.
When there actually is more evidence against Joe and Hunter Biden than there is with Trump, and the media automatically assumes that Trump is guilty, and yet they come out and even in the debate where Anderson Cooper was basically apologizing for having to ask Joe Biden a question about the corruption.
Yeah, because he said that this claim against Biden was just made up. Oh my gosh, it's made up. Now tell me this: it's really wrong for Trump to do. The other thing is the tremendous inconsistency in the standards. So, for example, it is really wrong for Trump to ask for a quid pro quo. Now, I personally think it doesn't matter if he asks. It's okay to ask for a quid pro quo. Biden bragged about forcing Ukraine into a quid pro quo, and everybody seems to think that's okay. And there's absolutely no evidence that there's anything wrong. And I agree with that if the requests were not corrupt. Now, in fact, the request for the quid pro quo was corrupt because of his son. But if it were not, there would have been nothing wrong with that. Now, all of a sudden, it's wrong for Trump to ask for a quid pro quo. Second point, it's wrong for Trump to ask for an investigation that involves a political opponent, Joe Biden. Well, is that wrong? That's supposedly interference in an election.
And at the time, he wasn't even the political opponent at the time. This is before Biden even announced.
Yeah. And didn't we just go through a 3-year Russiagate investigation, which started off as an investigation of a political opponent, both by the government of the United States and by the DNC in cooperation? Now they say, you can't ask a foreign country to help. Well, in the Trump investigation, they were only aided by 5 countries that I count: UK, Australia,
Italy,
Ukraine, Russia, and with Joseph Mifsud, Italy. That's 5 countries, at least 4. Joseph Mifsud, I think, was with Italian intelligence. He may be more of a UK intelligence, but at least 4 countries, maybe 5. And they're investigating a political candidate, but that's okay. Now, Trump's got a real case against Biden. There is a real case that anybody can say that there's earmarks of corruption in that one. And yet, that's supposedly, he's as pure as the wind-driven snow, Biden is, and Trump is tremendously guilty for, my gosh, he's leveraging foreign aid to do what? To get Ukraine to do what the United States, since President Obama started this in 2014, to stop the corruption. Trump wants an investigation of corruption. The fact that it involves Biden should have no difference.
Well, that's well, John, too bad. That's too bad, because on the contrary to that, and not to the contrary, but it is the president's duty to investigate corruption. And that's one of the things that I was very, very disappointed when this first came out. An fellow attorney on one of the news channels mentioned this right off the bat. The president has a duty to investigate corruption. If he's not, he's of dereliction of his duties. So why isn't the press talking about that, or the media talking about that? They've totally ignored it.
Absolutely. Now, if we go to April 2014, President Obama has also first named Biden as the point man for anti-corruption. This is the United States policy to investigate Ukrainian corruption. Eric Holder and Theresa May have a press conference in April, and they say that they're against Ukrainian corruption. It's part of their policy to go after it. And by the way, one of the big targets is Burisma. April 14, the British court seizes $23 million in Banco de Paribas' account that Burisma tried to launder out. They impounded it, and all they needed was a letter from the Ukraine prosecutor saying, gimme, 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 and they'll send the $23 million to Ukraine. This is looted money, send it back. Now, that's April 14th. April 18th, Burisma announces the hiring of somebody for their board. Ta-da, that is Hunter Biden. After that, for the next 9 months, not a thing was done. Not one piece of paper from that prosecutor was sent to the British court, and guess what the court did? Finally, January 2015, the court says, I can't wait any longer. I've been waiting for this document. I got to give the money to Burisma, as it should have done under the circumstances. So Burisma gets $23 million, puts it to Cyprus. Now, I ask you this question. Did Hunter Biden and Joe Biden have anything to do with that? Well, I think the circumstances, O.J. Simpson was only circumstantial evidence we have on him. This certainly looks like a circumstantial evidence case of corruption against Joe Biden and Hunter Biden. If a judge said, O'Connor, I'm about to take $23 million of your client's money that I've impounded and send it off to the other party, and then 4 days later, I hired the judge's daughter for $1 million a year, and then the judge decides, well, maybe after all, Mr. O'Connor, you can keep the $23 million. I'm not going to send it out there. Wouldn't everyone think that there's some corruption here? Of course there was. That's the case for corruption. That's all you need.
Well, John,
now
the administration, the Obama administration via Joe Biden insisted that the government of Ukraine, the previous administration, create an anti-corruption department. I'm sure you're aware of that. And
yes.
And where is the head of the anti-corruption department in Ukraine right now? He's in Ukrainian prison because he was investigated, convicted, and sentenced to prison for his collusion with the DNC. I mean, we're upside down here.
Well, also what happens is you had this honest guy, Lutsenko, who was a hero who had been put in prison for 2 years by the Russians when the Russians were controlling Yanukovych. They put him in. He was a hero, an anti-corruption hero in the Ukraine. When he becomes a prosecutor, he tries to get things going, and guess what happens? Our wonderful State Department, including later Marie Yovanovitch, or whatever her name is, they decide that the money, the United States aid, doesn't go to his office because he's sort of sniffing up the wrong tree. They give it to a private anti-corruption outfit run by George Soros. It's called ANTAC, something like anti-corruption, but they call it ANTAC. And so we have a private corruption organization run by Obama's big donor. Oh, no, that's not corrupt. Then they Comey stations an FBI agent over there, and the government starts a competing. Our government starts a competing anti-corruption unit called NABU, National Bureau of Corruption. And now what happens is Lutsenko is fighting his own anti-corruption people who happen to be Americans. He goes to Marie Yovanovitch to try to get her interested in his work, and she says there's a do not prosecute list, and she gives him a do not prosecute list, which is really odd. Now that's okay, sure. An ambassador that's tied in with Obama is telling him who to prosecute and who not, and it's only then that he gets so frustrated. He can't get Rosenstein to act when he's head of the Justice Department, so that's when he reaches out to Trump through Rudy Giuliani. It wasn't Giuliani out there searching this out. Lutsenko was completely stonewalled in his honest efforts to stop corruption in Ukraine, and guess what happens? He tries to get Giuliani interested. Now, of course, the problem, what screwed things up was his guy, Poroshenko, who the Russians did not like, was ahead in the polls, and the Russians came in and pushed in Zelensky. So Zelensky was the favored Russian candidate. Poroshenko's out. Now Lutsenko, he's kind of a man without a country, and he starts backing off some of his claims, understandably, and he just wants to stay alive. But
now we're almost out of time. I'm already over a little bit, John, and I really appreciate you coming on. But the final one more aspect to this, I'd like to ask you about. These people were really trying to clean up their act in Ukraine, and they wanted to talk to the DOJ and the FBI.
Right.
Who stopped them from coming here? And I know the answer, and so do you. And it's a U.S. ambassador.
Yeah. Right, and also Rosenstein was just unresponsive, and the ambassador was unresponsive. And sure, the fact that he had to resort to Giuliani tells you that he was desperate to get, because he was being stonewalled. And of course, this follows years of corruption, not cleaned up by Biden, but instituted by Biden. And there at least is enough to investigate. People talk about there's no evidence. Well, first of all, you investigate so that you can get evidence, but there's plenty right now. I would go to a jury with that. Maybe you're not going to get a conviction, but you're going to get a civil suit, award, more likely than not, maybe not beyond a reasonable doubt. But there's corruption there.
Absolutely.
And so if there is corruption, what's the matter with Trump trying to clean it up? The fact that a political opponent gets swept up in it is just too bad. Trump was investigated in Russiagate. Now it's turnaround, but that doesn't seem to be okay. And I think it was Stacy who said, the media gives these guys cover. That's my real point. The media is out there giving cover to this. If you didn't have the media, these guys couldn't get away with this. Brennan never would have tried to do what he did. Comey would have never tried to do what he did. They were confident that they could control the media. This whole Russiagate investigation before the election, they tried to leak to get guys on TV. Sergey Millian, the guy that was sourced D&E for Steele, immediately they sent him to Brian Ross of, I think he's ABC. I'm not sure which of the station, but they said he did an interview July, I think it was June 25th. That they were looking for airtime. They were looking to leak this on Trump. They were looking to interfere with the election with these phony deals. So my point is, and it was so well made earlier, the media really gives these guys comfort and shelter, and they're going to try to prevent any prosecution of these guys. You watch what happens. Let me ask you
a final question, and I'll give it to you, Stacy. We're running out of time, though.
Yeah, Stacy's right on here. Yeah,
she is for sure. Go ahead.
I think that the governments that you mentioned have a great incentive now to want to cooperate with Trump. So my question to you is, let's say that there is a case to be made and a Brennan or a Clapper or someone is indicted for something. Does it force the media to cover it? Or are you saying they're going to try and cover up for these guys before it even gets to that point?
Well, they're going to cover it. They'll have to cover it. But what they're going to do is they're going to give credence to the idea that this is just a corrupt prosecution by Barr. They're trying to make Barr corrupt. They've been trying to make him corrupt for about the last 4 or 5 months because they saw this coming. So you wait. The media will be the greatest defense witnesses you can imagine. And it'll be like if Ken Starr thinks he got it bad in the Clinton days, he's got another thing coming. That's child's play.
Remember that they used to catch it. They used to catch him smoking outside his house. I mean, they were like camping out with the guy. Let's help you out a little bit. Postgate, how the Washington Post betrayed Deep Throat, covered up Watergate, and began today's partisan advocacy journalism. I would say that Rush Limbaugh puts out a theory that maybe the media is running the Democrats. I don't know, but talk about your book.
I mean, they are. I mean, they're the most important part of the Democratic machine right now.
Absolutely. And when you look at the incestuous relationship between them, and the back and forth, and husband works for the administration, wife works for NBC. I mean, it's rampant. I mean, George Stephanopoulos is the freaking chief political chair at ABC. He's Clinton's communication director.
How about this? And it's my position that Watergate was the template for all of this. During Watergate, the DNC, which was directly part of this whole deal in Watergate,
as was the FBI.
Joseph Califano was the general counsel for the Washington Post, was also general counsel for the DNC. They were thick as thieves. So there we have it. The Washington Post was really an organ of the DNC and an anti-Republican organ during Watergate. And my book really proves that. And that's really the motive for a lot of the deceptive reporting that I point out and prove in my book.
And the book, again, Postgate, How the Washington Post Betrayed Deep Throat, Covered Up Watergate, and Began Today's Partisan Advocacy Journalism. Mr. John Connor, you're quickly becoming one of my favorite guests. I hope you will come back on the program as these events unfold and enlighten our audience into your extensive research and knowledge on these subjects.
I'd love to do it, and I'd love your panel again. Both your panelists were great, and they're singing my tune, I'll tell you that. So let's all talk again.
Outstanding. John O'Connor, ladies and gentlemen, Stacy and Sal.
Thank you, John. We really appreciate you being with us tonight.
Yeah, it was fun, Stacy. Thank you.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, John O'Connor, thank you, sir. And I want to get to something in a minute, which I will do. But ladies and gentlemen, we'll be right back.
Looking for an alternative place to find news and opinion? How about conversing with fellow patriots? Join us Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific for Cold War Radio. You will find it at www.spreaker.com or in the Spreaker app. Search for Cold War Radio and you will find it. Since I've been listening, I have met some terrific patriots and learned quite a lot about current events that the mainstream media will never tell you. Please come and join us. Be inspired. You will feel right at home in our Spreaker chat room.
Man, that guy knows what he's talking about, ladies and gentlemen. I'll tell you what, he's coming back on the show again. He could even quote the Ukrainians' names. I couldn't do that. When he started bringing names back, I was like, nice. I got Poroshenko, and that's it. Everybody else
he knew so much detail that I don't think a lot of people, I certainly know a lot of people who don't pay attention to politics closely or listen to this show or what have you, but he understood the fact that Ukraine was trying to get this information to us, and they tried in several different venues to try and get the corruption information to us, and were completely blocked by that. And I loved the fact that he had that information.
And she was a star witness in the basement at the Capitol the other day. The woman that would not issue visas to these anti-corruption people that wanted to talk to the authorities in the United States. This is horrible. This whole thing is just absolutely... I want you to... We were talking about John Brennan. We're talking about Brennan. I want to remind everybody.
If he goes to jail, I'm going to visit him.
Well, the thing that I would like to get to eventually, if we get Mr. O'Connor back on, is are people in the current Department of Justice going to have the courage to bring charges should it come that far? And if you look struggling, at it, I am struggling with that thought that they'll actually do it.
Sal, I'm a logistician. I'm a master logistician. I'm not just a logistician. I'm a freaking global master logistician. And I actually pray that they're thinking 6 steps down the line after they bring the indictments, because it's not going to be over like a normal case. It's going to turn this country into freaking anarchy. And they better be prepared to do what they have to do. And when I say that, now you think about this, and I'm getting ready to talk about Republicans in a minute. The entire government is against us. They're not against Trump. They're against you, us three, and everybody listening to this show. They hate us.
Yes,
you understand that? That's a fact. And they better be prepared for the aftermath. And that might include some things that haven't been done in this country for a while or ever. You might have to lock down Congress. There's some things you might have to lock down the press. This is a massive effort to destroy our republic. Don't forget that, folks.
Well, I think it's happening now. I think it's just about a soft coup happening right now, and there's closed door meetings.
You're damn right.
What the hell are they talking about?
You're absolutely right.
We have a right to know. I have a right to know. We all have a right to know what's going on.
And certainly our Republican representatives have a right to know. And yet, they're treated like little children and can't be involved and must have a Democrat with them if they're, reviewing depositions and transcripts and such. It's a complete travesty.
It is.
The only thing is I think that the American people do get this. I think they get the fact that there wasn't a quid pro quo. I think they get the fact that the Democrats are butthurt because they lost the 2016 election and that they're trying to overturn it. And I do not think this is going to go well for them.
I don't either. I watched John Roberts tonight, who I'm really starting to not like. And he took, instead of being a news reporter, he took every single syllable that the president said and tried to make it into something else. I mean, he didn't report the news. He was trying to criticize the president and to get people to believe that he wasn't really saying what he really just said. It was horrible to me. And I got a couple callers on the line, but first, I want to remind everybody who John Brennan is. In my opinion, John Brennan is a Saudi Arabian plant. This guy voted communist in the 1970s in a presidential election. He voted for the Communist Party USA candidate in Chicago. This is John Brennan.
But for more than 3 decades, I have also had the tremendous fortune to travel the world, and as part of that experience, to learn about the goodness and beauty of Islam.
The goodness and beauty.
As a college student in the 1970s, I spent a summer traveling through Indonesia.
That's red diaper
taking
Dopa
in
baby.
The wonderful landscape, culture, and people of Java and Bali. Despite my long hair, my earring, and my obvious American appearance, I was welcomed throughout that country in a way that is a reflection of the tremendous warmth of Islamic cultures and societies. Like the president during his childhood years in Jakarta, I came to see Islam, not how it is often misrepresented, but for what it is, how it is practiced every day by well over 1 billion Muslims worldwide, a faith of peace and tolerance and great diversity. And if you permit me, or I should say, اسمح لي, بعد إندونيسيا سافرت إلى مصر وهناك درست عربية في جامعة أمريكية في القاهرة وهذا في سنة 1975 و76.
I hate this dude.
وسافرت إلى الأردن وفلسطين والقدس
إن شاء الله.
وبعد مصر ساكن في الشرق الأوسط تقريبا 6 سنة، لكن الآن أنا أجوز. أنا كنت طالب وشباب لما درست.
Enough of that. I can't take any more. That's John Brennan. Let's go to, hold on. Let me look and see if he's still there. Sean, you were on first. Go ahead.
Hey, what's up, guys? And Hutch, how you guys doing?
All right.
John?
We're doing all right.
Well, I got some news from California. This one I think you're going to love. This one is about a mother recently giving birth to a miracle despite facing the pressure of trying to end her pregnancy. I'm pretty sure you've all been keeping up with this if you haven't. Her name's Jade Davis, or I'm sorry if I'm not pronouncing that, Davis. Anyway, she's a 36-year-old mom-to-be. She was diagnosed with stage 2 triple-negative breast cancer that one of her doctors missed, and she was pregnant at the time, but she gave birth, and I think she's still fighting to keep the baby. I don't know. Anyways, I got the link for you all into the chat for you to look at. But that's pretty awesome. I mean, for a woman to do that, have a baby when she's got cancer, I mean, wow.
Yeah, that's a big deal.
I never thought that could happen. I mean, anyways, I also wanted to thank Justin in the chat room for providing me with some information that I was trying to look for a while, and he brought it to me. So thank you, Justin, about the petition to recall Gavin Newsom. I was trying desperately to find it. Looks like I went to the wrong site instead to get the information for the petition. So thank you again, Justin.
All right. Anything else going on? What do you think about John O'Connor? That's like going to be my go-to guy as far as this goes. He's in the know. He's in the know.
Very great interview. But my biggest thing is I only believe it when I see it. My only biggest thing again is I'll believe it when I see it. So Barr better come out and have some indictments in hand and everything. Otherwise, forget it.
I'm with you.
I'm losing that will to keep this up.
Well, don't because let me tell you this. I'm gonna let you go here, but let me tell you.
No, don't let him go because I got a question for him. But go ahead.
All right, just watch the clock though, because we got a lot to cover here yet. But what they are doing is they're trying to make you feel that way, Sean. And I have to admit to you, especially earlier today, when I was framing how I was going to do the show tonight, I was going to come on here with doom and gloom because we're getting set up, folks. We're getting set up. I'm just telling you, it takes 19 senators to convict the president, and
I agree with you. I do think that we need to be concerned about this impeachment.
We do. This is not a joke. This is not a joke, and the polls and the media and the entertainment industry and Hollywood and every damn buddy is against us.
And they're giving the rhinos cover.
They are.
To come out and say, we're going to have to, really take this into consideration and potentially impeach.
And we're going to get to that. Sean, thanks for calling, brother. Always appreciate it.
All right. Hey, Sean, real quick.
Oh, no, that's right. Sal had a question.
That's right. Hey, are you going to start eating roadkill? That's what I want to know.
Roadkill.
That's the Sal that I know.
Come on.
Well,
are you aware of the new bill that was passed by your governor?
No, I frankly just kind of just stopped tuning in.
It's a new economy in California. You can get on the ground floor, Sean. You can start collecting roadkill and start eating it.
I mean, we're talking armadillo ribs here, man.
Come on, brother. Where you been? Okay. Well, I'm going to leave. Hey, Sean, I'm going to leave that for food for thought. Let's talk about it next time.
I've never tried armadillo, and I don't think I ever want to, but I will say this. With Gavin Newsom the way he is, I don't know how long California can take it. I mean, we could see full-blown riots, or we could just say we can have total full-blown submission of communism. It's going to go either way.
All right, Sean. We're gonna hope for the best. Thanks for calling. All right, let's go to Ken and King George. Ken, you're up.
I was just about ready to post in the chat there the roadkill rib. Sounds like a great great place for
They be kind of like
them.
them. They kind of be like those Andy Cap cheese fries. You know, those hot fries be like just little armadillo ribs, little ribs with armor on them.
Yeah, you can't be messing with the hot fries now because I love them on the ship, man.
I do too. I like them.
Oh yeah, the cheddar fries and all that. No, just stick with hot fries. Boom, done. But okay, so oh gosh, what the heck was it? Matt Gates today.
Oh, he crashed the skiff, man.
Oh yeah, and I actually saw he threw out a Twitter feed, whatever, hey, we did this. And the comment section is just, these people, oh, this guy's obstructing justice. And this, what the hell do you think Matt or Chip is doing behind that closed door?
Right. I mean, Stacy.
If you want to impeach this president, goddamn it, let's have a vote.
Right. Just kind of like going to war.
Boom.
You want to fight in Syria? Declare frickin' war. Stacy, I don't know if you saw Swalwell, but man, she was on fire.
No, I didn't see her. What did she do?
Oh, she said the guilty are the ones that try to fight the system, but if you're innocent, you cooperate with the house rules. I'm thinking house rules. What do you mean? The
made-up rules?
The Vladivostok rules, the Soviet rules that were closing us in? Go ahead, Ken.
Well, yeah. Okay, so you're interviewing a guy that's, on the national, what the hell, the pick a freaking agency, and members of that particular agency can't be present during this closed-door hearing? What kind of Stalinist bullshit is
bizarre.
that?
It's bizarre. And you know what's even more bizarre than that is before the show, I do show prep, and one of the things I do for show prep is I try to watch at least the panel on Special Report with Brett Baer. And that panel tonight was so never Trump. It was Mark Thiessen and Stephen Hayes and, Margaret Eliason or whatever the hell her name is. And it was just horrible, man. It was like, this isn't news. What? This is a setup, man.
Well, I kind of gave up on Brett when he got this, oh, my God, it's an exclusive interview with Hillary Clinton.
Yeah.
And he didn't ask a damn question about emails.
It's a shame.
Well, I tell you, honestly, though, Ken, after watching, the Project Veritas videos where Zucker's in the control room telling people what to do and what to say, I think at Brett Baer's heart of hearts, he knows what's going on. I think he has little control over what he's going to cover.
But he's got somebody in his ear just like they do.
Yeah, and he wants to live. He wants to live too. He wants to live. He wants to live and eat.
Well, yeah, everybody wants a paycheck,
right?
But how you get it?
It's like I said at the beginning of the show. It's like I said at the beginning of the show. If money is the most important thing in your life, America is over.
Right. And I think in Brett's
Rush
case,
Limbaugh said that in 1990.
Yeah.
Because I read his book, and it was right in there.
Trying to keep up with the Kardashians.
That's it, man. That's it. That's it.
Hollywood's not helping the situation any.
That extra car is more important than your children. Well, we got a problem, Houston. Mm-hmm.
But Ken, are you a roadkill guy?
No, Ken will shoot it. He's good.
Hey, for the record, Sal, I am not a roadkill guy.
Neither am I.
Okay.
Or lady, excuse me.
To respond to Sal, when I was coming home from work today, I stopped at Food Lion.
Now Sal doesn't. Hey, hold on. Sal doesn't get around that much, man. He pretty much sticks in Pittsburgh. Sal, that's like Giant Eagle in the South. Food Lion.
All right, keep
this
going.
This time.
So it's actually Food Lion in down here in King George. It's not. they'll keep you alive, but the best place to go, and I believe it's actually either a New Jersey or Pennsylvania-based family-run grocery store called Wegmans.
Redmond's is good. They had them out in Lebanon County. But
oh my God, this place is awesome. They have one in Fredericksburg, but we go there. You know, it's kind of like, you know, hey, we're going up into town.
I'm gonna stick with Piggly Wiggly. But thanks for calling, Ken. I got to roll on here. Only got Stacy for a couple more minutes. Thank you, sir. All right, Ken from King George. All right, I want to get into this. No calls for a second. Just don't call for a minute. I'll give you a chance, but let me get through this. Stacy, I want to talk about my concern with the Senate, because I really am concerned about it. And Lindsey Graham went on Sean Hannity either tonight or yesterday. I'm not exactly sure which. But I got to tell you, ladies and gentlemen, I tried to warn you about Trey Gowdy. And he was a rock star, man. He was one of my rock stars. But once I started paying attention to it, I realized that he wasn't a rock star, man. He was up there and he had a mission. And he executed his mission flawlessly. He made the entire country, including me and including you, Stacy, believe that he was looking for justice during the Benghazi hearings. And we all know how that played out. You know, we all remembered. And as a matter of fact, you brought to the stage something very important, and that was during the entire Benghazi operation, there was a group of people normally known as the Gang of Eight, that knew every goddamn thing about Benghazi that was going on the entire time that they were BSing us. And I just want people to remember that. The operation was Operation Zero Footprint, and it was to get the man pads, which are shoulder-held anti-aircraft missiles that could shoot down any plane in the world. And they were in Libya. And we had an operation, a State Department / anytime you hear CIA, the State Department's in it too. Anytime. But we had an operation there to try to get these things out of there. And here are the people that knew everything that there was to know about Benghazi, Operation Zero Footprint, and us messing around over here in the Middle East. President Obama and Vice President Biden. Secretary of State Hillary Clinton. CIA Director Leon Panetta. CIA Director General David Petraeus. NATO Commander James Stavridis. White House National Security Advisor Tom Donilon. National Security Spokesman Tommy Vitor. We're going to get to him in a minute. Security Advisor John Brennan. Speaker of the House, now marijuana advocate John Boehner.
John Boehner.
He has a bar in Ohio, by the way. Minority Leader Nancy Pelosi. Select Committee on Intel Chairman Mike Rogers. He retired
Yes, he did.
to go into a radio career that never happened. I can tell you that because I have a radio career, and he's never been on the radar. House Intel Committee Charles Ruppersberger. Senate Minority Leader and Chinese advocate Mitch McConnell. Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid, biggest landowner in Nevada. Senate Intel Chair Dianne Feinstein, who gave her seat up to Senate Intelligence Committee Minority Leader Saxy Chambliss. U.S. Libyan Ambassador Chris Stevens, U.S. Assistant Secretary of State Andrew Shapiro, and Senior Head of U.S. Weapons Office Mark Adams. They all knew everything there was to know about what was going on in Benghazi. None of them said shit. You brought that to my attention, Stacy.
I know.
Way back then. Remember?
I do. God, that's been several years ago, and it's just so interesting that, that Benghazi has been a little bit more on Twitter. You're seeing it on your Twitter feed, and some of that has to do with some, emails that Judicial Watch has been able to uncover. And I just don't think that the majority of people know what was going on there and what Chris Stevens was doing there. And that is simply why Obama and Hillary Clinton and all of the rest of them,
McCain,
Lindsey Graham,
Lindsey
our
Graham,
side,
Kinzinger, McMullen, all of them. They were all involved in this.
All of them knew what was going on.
Guess who else knew? Rebel leader Islamic fighting group Abu Sufyan Ibrahim Ahmed Hamouda bin Kumu, and rebel leader Islamic fighting group Abu Khatala, commander of an Islamist militant group called Abu Obaida bin Jarrah Brigade, the 17th February Brigade, Ansar al-Sharia. That's why I played the clip about John Brennan. This is big, and ladies and gentlemen, Sundance at the Conservative Treehouse, who I respect immensely, wrote the Benghazi brief, and it is in the research room at steelcityresistance.com. It is entirely too long for me to talk about tonight other than what I've already said. Go there and read it. The research is impeccable. These people, we're getting set up. I'm telling you. This Lindsey Graham, and I tried to warn you about Trey Gowdy. Think about who Lindsey Graham's BFF was.
Right.
John McCain.
Absolutely.
He rode in on John McCain's coattails. Lindsey Graham. Literally, exactly. And Lindsey Graham started this goddamn Syria war. I'm just telling you. I reported. I remember, Stacy. I was there, and I said, this is not good. They just sent John McCain and Lindsey Graham to Cairo, to the prison, to try to break out Mohammed Morsi, the president of Egypt, and supreme member of the Muslim Brotherhood. They went to Cairo and tried to break him out of jail. Lindsey Graham. And you wonder why Lindsey Graham's not issuing any subpoenas. Because he's going to bust himself if he does. Now, I want you to listen to the fake. Well, let me set this up with Sundance, because this guy is phenomenal. He figures it out. Facing scrutiny, Lindsey Graham runs. Now, I don't want to get you guys mad, but that's not my only concern. The truth must come out. Facing scrutiny, Lindsey Graham runs to TikTok Hannity for help. Because, the last couple days, Graham's been under fire from people like me. And he decided he's got to go on Hannity. Together, they proclaim the investigative brilliance of a strongly worded letter. The crowd has realized that Senator Lindsey Graham is playing a role, much like Trey Gowdy did, and has no intention to do anything to stop the malicious impeachment of President Trump. Last night, Senator Rand Paul went on the record, this is one of his 9 times that he does good, and called attention to Graham's duplicitous lack of action. Oh dear, the people are catching on. To protect himself from the disinfecting sunlight of scrutiny, Senator Graham runs to the office of Sean Hannity for protection. Together, they pitch the idea of a strongly worded letter as an action that might provide Graham some more time to hide and get away from the pesky spotlight Tonight they sell it. In the background, Senator Graham knows a Democrat senator will oppose the resolution. It only takes one. Because the procedure for a single senator to bring a resolution vote to the Senate chamber requires unanimous consent. The resolution can also be blocked by a single senator. Don't disregard which outlet Graham is using to sell his plan. That, too, is by design, and that would be Fox News and the Sean Hannity Show. This strategy provides Senator Graham the optic of doing something, being blocked by Democrats, which he expects, and actually accomplishing nothing. That's the plan, just like Trey Gowdy, folks. And it'll probably work. Too many people are fooled by this bullshit. Dozens of Republicans, led by Representative Matt Gaetz, stormed the secret closed-door deposition of Laura Cooper in protest of the closed hearing, but this was too much for Lindsey Graham. The do-nothing judiciary chair called them nuts to make a run on the skiff. Unbelievable. Let's listen.
And this is a Fox News Alert. Senator Lindsey Graham tonight introducing a new resolution condemning the House of Representatives, their closed-door, illegitimate, unconstitutional impeachment inquiry. He joins us now with more. Senator, I'm glad to see this happen. Yeah. Censure. Every Republican that was there voted for it yesterday. Democrats shut it down. Right. Never before has this happened in an impeachment inquiry. Closed doors. They won't let a Republican read a transcript without a minder. And God forbid they get a copy of it.
Yeah, so this resolution puts the Senate on record condemning the House for the future of the presidency. We cannot allow future presidents and this president to be impeached based on an inquiry in the House that's never been voted upon, that does not allow the president to confront the witnesses against him, call witnesses on his behalf, and cross-examine people who are accusing him of misdeeds. All I'm asking is give Donald Trump the same rights as Richard Nixon and Bill Clinton had when it comes to impeachment. And I'm insisting that Donald Trump be given the same rights every American has if you're given a parking ticket. To confront the witnesses against you can't be based on hearsay. And here's the point of the resolution. Any impeachment vote based on this process, to me, is illegitimate, is unconstitutional, and should be dismissed in the Senate without a trial.
Okay, now let's walk through how that gets done. How do you dismiss it without a trial? All of what you're saying is true. Newt Gingrich will join us in a minute. He will explain to us in detail every consideration. Look, I'll quote you in this whole thing. You said the cornerstone of America's jurisprudence, due process. You said the right to confront your accuser, call witnesses on your behalf, challenge the accusations against you. None of that is happening in the House of Representatives. And where are your fellow senators? I'd like to see them sign your letter.
Well, it's going to be a resolution. I hope to have a vote on it. I hope I can get. It'd be great to have 100. Can you imagine if Republicans were doing this to a Democratic president? This whole this opening statement by Bill Taylor today, everybody is breathless. Here's a question: why does the president of the Ukraine deny there's a quid pro quo? What do you know that he doesn't know? Why did the president of the Ukraine say during the phone call, I didn't know aid was suspended? And the president of the Ukraine, the alleged victim of all this, denies that there was a quid pro quo. He didn't feel threatened by the president of the United States. That only happens if you can confront the witnesses against you. This process in the House is being conducted behind closed doors. Republicans are being shut out. And if you had an inquiry vote, that allows Republicans and the president to call witnesses and to confront people accusing the president of misdeeds. That's what happened with Clinton. That's what happened with Nixon and Andrew Johnson. This is un-American at its core.
And I had to fast forward. I'm tired of hearing this stuff. Stacy, I know you got to go, so your thoughts.
Well, yeah, I'm so glad he's condemning it. It's going to do, exactly nothing. Maybe what he should be doing is acting like the chair of the Judiciary Committee and actually calling some witnesses and shining some light on what's going on. I am concerned about this impeachment only because of the squishy Republicans that we have in the Senate. And, with what you were mentioning too, Hutch, with Lindsey kind of being involved in so many more things that he doesn't want to be scrutinized, I don't anticipate that, he can be counted on to stick by Trump. I mean, I've been very pleased with House Republicans, but the Senate is doing absolutely nothing. So I have no confidence that, if they take this vote, send it to the Senate, that the Senate wouldn't be taking the polls that we're seeing, every day about how many Americans want impeachment, et cetera, and giving them cover to, instead of saying we're not even going to take this seriously because you didn't put it to the floor for a vote. It's not truly an impeachment period. I have no confidence that they won't take this on and that we would get enough Republicans to impeach the president. So I do think we need to be on top of it. I am concerned about it. And I wanted to hear what you think too, Hutch.
Turncoat Senator Richard Burr to call in impeachment witnesses to testify. Ignores Biden crime family. These people are frauds. They are. They're frauds, and I have zero confidence in the United States Senate when it comes to the Republican Party. The good news / bad news of this whole thing is that if the Senate capitulates, the Republican Party is over.
Yeah.
Over. Done. I'm never supporting them again. I'm out. If I got to go to the mountains, I'll go to the mountains.
I just don't think that they care. I think, like you said, money is the root of money and power are the two most important things to 90% of those people up there. And I don't think that the majority of Republicans there would care if the party went away. I think they want us to go away.
I'm going to take a little different view at this. And, maybe you guys won't agree with me, and that's all fine and well. But, maybe we haven't heard too much from them, because they really don't want to give it any more volume that it already has. So
that's not true.
That's true. That's true. But why? Because they're protecting their own money.
Sure, but what I'm saying is, why do you want to keep this hoax going and keep? Why would you want to make that part of your re-election platform?
Because it's all a part of psychological operations. They are purposely not saying anything in support of Trump.
Nothing.
Because they want these polls to get out there, and they want us to start going, oh, God, everybody else wants them to be impeached, so I guess I better join on the impeachment train because otherwise I'm an idiot. Look at all these polls. Everyone in America thinks he should be impeached.
So true.
Why don't I think he should be?
The transcript's out there. There was no quid pro quo. This Taylor guy, there was nothing new that was testified today. These news stories are a bunch of loads of crap. There's nothing new. I frankly don't think the Senate wants to really waste any time, give this any more volume that it actually needs or deserves, because it's just a big heaping pile of crap, and really move on with the business of the country. And
how many Republican senators do you think have financially gained from Ukraine? You think there's none?
Oh, come on!
You think just the Democrats got paid there?
No, of course not.
There's people.
I know it's a country club.
I know you do.
I know
you do.
Club. Yeah.
No, I know that. But anyway, all right, let's slow down. Stacy, you got to go. How can people get in touch with you? And thanks for coming on.
Thank you guys for having me on tonight. It's a pleasure to be with y'all. As always, Sal and Hutch, I very much appreciate it. You guys can most easily reach me on Twitter. I am at DiscoveringMe40 or America First Stacy. So thank you guys. And I want to say a happy birthday, Rocky. I hope you have a wonderful and have had a wonderful day and have a wonderful evening. Thanks, guys.
All right, Stacy, thank you. Thanks for coming on, and man, we love you. Good job.
Love you too. Bye-bye.
All right. Let's go to, Sal, the House of Representatives, the guys that got down there, and I shouldn't have got on Kelly, Representative Kelly, Mike Kelly from Butler, because I jacked on him because he wasn't at that conference, but then I found out that's because he was here in Pittsburgh in the audience listening to the president. So, Mike Kelly, I apologize for getting on you, but you could still jump out there and support the president a little bit more than you have been. That being said, the courage and you could actually see the conviction in the Republican members of the House that stormed the SCIF today. They were serious, man. That was from the heart, in my opinion, when they all testified, or they all contributed to the presser.
Yeah, they all know it's a bunch of. They know it. They all know it's a bunch of nonsense. They all know it's these secretive hearings. I don't know. You know, we deserve to know what's going on, or our representatives and our people who represent the people deserve to know what's going on behind those closed doors. We already know that this story has been totally debunked, just like the Russian collusion story has been totally debunked. So what's next?
Right.
What's next?
Let me tell you what's going on right now. I mean, and I know most of you already know what's going on, but you've got a closed door hearing that nobody gets the transcripts except Fox News. That amazed me today. You know, that they had the transcripts that the GOP representatives couldn't get. Fox News had them. Somebody leaked them to Fox News. And this whole thing, they leak selectively what they want to the people. And so you've got, I have a situation where I have a dear, dear friend of mine, a military. He's what we call in the military, he was my battle buddy. He was my muscle. He was my master sergeant in charge of maintenance in 13 states in the Army Reserve. And I talked to him today, and the media malfeasance, he's not a big politics guy. So he watches the news, and that's it. And he told me, man, that Trump is crazy. I said, what are you talking about, man? He said, he hates you. He hates me. He hates veterans. I was like, man, hold on. Where'd you hear that? I watched him on national television say that the Constitution, he shouldn't have to listen to the Constitution. He's the president, and he should be able to do what he wants to do. He shouldn't have to worry about what people a couple hundred years ago said. And I was like, Sarge, where'd you hear that? I never heard that. I've listened to every word this son of a bitch has said in the last 4 years, and I never heard him say that. The media's out of control. And they're telling people things, and people are believing it. People that are not into this the way we are. People that are just trying to live their lives. Let me set the record straight. This is Representative Ratcliffe, and he's telling you right now, it's all bullshit.
Ask him questions, and you'd like to talk to the whistleblower. Tell us what you'd like to know.
Well, why don't we know when the person who ultimately became a whistleblower first went to Chairman Schiff and his staff? When did they meet? How long did they meet? Did they talk about the Ukraine? Did they talk about military aid? Were they referred to a whistleblower lawyer? All of these things are facts.
Well, they say they were. They say they didn't talk to Adam Schiff personally, and that they were referred to a whistleblower.
Who says that,
lawyer. Well,
who says that, Martha?
Schiff's office has said that.
They haven't said it under oath. They also said they had no contact with the whistleblower initially. Yeah. So the only way we can get that testimony accurately is under oath from either members of his staff or from the whistleblower, and he won't bring those witnesses forward. He keeps trotting in career ambassadors who are alarmed at Donald Trump's unconventional approach to foreign policy. Who's surprised at that? And again, Ambassador Taylor today, I found him to be very forthright. He had very strong opinions about Donald Trump's approach to foreign policy. But again, the mainstream media reporting that he provided evidence of a quid pro quo involving military aid is false. I question him directly on that, and under Adam Schiff's rules, I can't tell you what he said, but I can tell you what he didn't say. And neither he or any other witness has provided testimony that the Ukrainians were aware that military aid was being withheld. You can't have a quid pro quo with no quo.
Yeah, so that in combination with the fact that they say they didn't feel pressured, and when you add to that they didn't know that the military aid had a pause on it, it makes it difficult to judge their behavior after that as being something that they were pushed or threatened into doing.
Martha, if this were a court case, the lawyers for the defense would be moving for a directed verdict. They'd be saying this case isn't allowed to go to the jury because the prosecution is missing an essential element of their case. There is no quid pro quo until someone from the Ukraine says, we knew that military aid was being withheld during that July 25th call, and that testimony hasn't come, and it's not coming. This is just another in the latest of a frame job of the president. They tried to frame him for being a Russian agent and failed. They tried to frame him for obstructing justice using a legal standard that had never been applied to anyone else and failed. And now they're trying to frame him for a quid pro quo involving military aid where no Ukrainian was aware that military aid was being withheld. It's it's grossly unfair.
I find the polls very interesting because there's movement in them, and
about
whether
the
or
polls?
not that's meaningful at this point, we don't know. But it is interesting to see these swing state polls, and I wonder if the process here is starting to hurt their case on the Democrats' side with the American people. But we'll see. We'll keep watching it. Congressman, always good to see.
You know what people want to know? They want to know when someone's going to jail. I tell people that's the question. More often than not, when I'm walking through an airport or something, people walk up to me. When is somebody going to jail for the wrongdoing that took place in the Trump-Russia investigation or even the Clinton investigation?
All right, Marlene, we're going to get to you in just a second. I want to go to Cocoa, Florida. What's your name and how you doing?
Thank you, Hutch. How you doing?
Good. Who are you?
Good to hear you. I got your information about the host tonight, so I wanted to call in real quick.
All right. What's your name?
My name's Jacob.
Jacob. All right. What's on your mind, sir?
I'm doing pretty good. Well, a couple of things. One is everybody's talking about the non-transparency of the Democrat Party of the holding this meeting down in the basement. That obviously should be open. That should be known what's going on with that with Schiff. I don't know what he's planning to do with that.
It's Soviet. It's nuts.
So that's so wrong. I wish stuff like that would just cease, and just trying to get rid of, trying to find something to go after the president is wrong. So.
No, I agree, and I think that if you take the amount of times that the word impeachment has crossed across the airwaves, you'd think it was just a routine political maneuver. I mean, it's only happened 3 times in the history of the United States, and Nancy Pelosi has allowed these people to Shanghai the whole Congress. I mean, this is...
and you know what? I want to know where Schiff's evidence was from 2 years ago.
Right.
He said he had it. Where's it at? Where's it at? Yeah, where's his evidence at? We had it a couple years ago. Unrefutable evidence. Where's it at, dude?
Yeah, exactly. Where is it? I think they're just meeting, I think, to make some stuff. This is my personal opinion, is they're going to meet to make some stuff up, whatever they can concoct up here and falsify some records. That's my personal opinion. But
well, they've been doing that. I mean, you look at like Stacy said, Anderson Cooper. He came on and he prefaced the question to the candidate. Now, the president has made false accusations against the Bidens for taking money. That wasn't a false accusation. That's right there in front of everybody. Look at his bank records. Mm-hmm. You know, this is something else. So did you just start listening to the show, Jacob, or have you been listening for a while?
For a while. You had me on about the Ebola thing. I run the
Okay. So Jacob, let's change gears a little bit. So I got a question for you. What about the virus, the D68? Have you been watching that at all? And the causing paralysis in children. Have you been watching that at all? Share some of that with us.
A little bit familiar with that. The paralysis in the kids. My personal opinion and personal belief is I know they have active polio over in what country is in the Far East? I think it was China or India, some Far East country. They have active polio cases.
India's got a pig Ebola problem.
Yeah, Ebola and take Ebola in India, and then they have polio, active polio. I'm thinking personally it's something like polio, and they're just going to name it that it is polio. That's what I'm personally thinking it possibly.
All right.
So do you think it's a strain that we're probably not immune to, or they're immune to it and we aren't, and maybe some people are a little bit more susceptible to it than others?
That's what it is, or people aren't vaccinated with polio or something. I don't know. It's kind of weird that we haven't heard some cases about polio in Afghanistan or India or some of those far eastern countries like that. I heard something about there's some active cases of polio over there, and if coming over here, if there's someone over here bringing it and kids aren't vaccinated, that could possibly be why. I pulled a report up here and I have it on my website. I have a documented, confirmed this organization called Refugee on Planes, and their mission statement is to give migrants, refugees, airline flights to Europe and the United States so they could evacuate the areas quickly from the war zone, from Syria, Turkey, and Africa. Any war zone has a war zone, they can get the migrants quickly out of the area to your local airport in Europe or America very fast on an airplane jet. So, if they're doing that, there's no recourse for disease checkers as they're coming across at the airport, but they are screening people at the airport to take their temperature and whatnot at Atlanta, New York, New Jersey, Atlanta, Washington, D.C., Boston, Logan, and LAX. They are screening people.
Well, they'll adjust. They'll turn around and adjust, and they'll start coming into Middletown, Pennsylvania, and Reading and things like that. Hey, Jacob, thanks for calling, man. I got a lot to cover yet. We'll talk to you next time. Keep us up to date.
Website.
Right. Let's go to Marlene in Eugene, Oregon. Hello, Marlene. Sorry to keep you waiting.
Hey, that's okay. That guy was really interesting. I like listening to him.
He's got a website.
I know.
I can't remember.
Anyway,
EbolaMap.com. That's what it is. Go ahead.
Yep, that's it. I was just thinking with all this talk about roadkill and all this stuff, my first thought was, gee, that reminds me of Bizarre Foods with Andrew Zimmerman.
Let's not go
Travel
there.
Channel.
Let's not go.
No, we won't.
Please.
Yeah, we won't.
I don't want to eat any larvae or anything like that. No.
Me neither. Yuck. No, I have something good actually.
All right.
This was off of Judicial Watch, and they're talking about how basically the University of Arizona is records say Judicial Watch has obtained records that expose the troubling partnership with the Confucius Institute and provides the Chinese
a big
establishment
deal.
with offices, the whole thing, and they're doing this down at the University of Arizona. And I'm like,
they're doing it in a lot of universities, not just Minnesota.
Oh, they are.
No, the Chinese are definitely our superiors when it comes to subversive operations. And it stems back, Marlene, to what I said, at the beginning of the show.
Yes.
If Americans count money as the number one thing in their lives, America will be over soon.
Oh, exactly.
It will be over.
Basically what they're saying, I agree. But they were saying that the University of Arizona, the records show that the U of A, a taxpayer-funded institution with an enrollment of about 44,000 people, paid $100,000 to launch a Confucius site on its Tucson campus about 10 years ago or so.
Yep.
And they've been doing this for a while. And it's not, you are correct, there are other universities, but this kind of caught my eye because I'm going, wait a minute, not that I'm from there, but just to see that, I was like, oh my God.
No, it's scary, man. It's scary. These people.
It's way scary.
Do you remember? And I wish I had. I wish I had the commercial in front of me right now, but there was a commercial about 5 or 6 years ago, might have been longer than that, and there was a Chinese guy, and he was, talking to a young Chinese audience, and you might have seen this, and it basically said that they're going to take us over because we're stupid and greedy, and they were right. I mean, I don't know if you remember that commercial, but it was very chilling. And if we're not careful,
oh yeah,
it's going to happen. And our government doesn't give a damn. These people
no, they don't.
Are getting personally enriched. And see, the thing about the Chinese is they will let 10 million of their own people starve to get Joe Biden rich.
Mm-hmm.
They don't care about their own people, man. I mean, Mao Zedong, in his reign of terror, in the timeline of that reign of terror, he collectivized all the farms. He did what Bernie Sanders would do here. He did what Bernie Sanders and AOC and Rashida Tlaib and all the rest of these people, and Chuck Schumer, he did what they want to do here. He would seize all of American farms, and he would collectivize them, make them under the government, and he would force people to move from the cities to the farms to work those farms. The farms would all fail, and millions of people would die of starvation. That is what happened in communist China over the last 75 years.
And I think it's still going on, too.
And every time a milestone was met, after 1 million people died, he said, don't worry about it. After 5 million people died, don't worry about it. After 10, don't worry about it. Up to 70 million Chinese died of starvation because of his political policies. And that's what they want to do here. It is exactly what they want to do here.
Right. Yeah.
And they're still doing it over there.
They are.
They throw away children. They're disposable objects. It's horrible.
Look what they do here. And I have to go against Trump here. Look what we do here. We are so arrogant that we have taken a portion of the world's food supply. And you can connect this to the Arab Spring in Egypt. If you look at the Egyptians, what they spend per year for food is like 47%, man. Like 50 cents out of every dollar that they make, they have to turn around and spend on food. And one of the reasons for that is the people in Iowa, the greedy farmers in Iowa that want to keep ethanol going, we're burning the world's food supply in our cars. And it's destroying my weed whacker, by the way, goddammit.
No kidding.
You know, and my chainsaw. Because that ethanol tears everything up.
I know. I think that whole idea of ethanol was a bunch of crap.
Ladies and gentlemen, I want to apologize. I cursed several times. And once I did it the first time, I was like, all right, I can do it now. You know, I already did it once, so I don't normally.
I wonder what.
I don't normally do that, but that's the way I usually talk. If you're talking to me right in front of me, that's the way I talk. You know, it's like Trump. It's like Trump when he say, "Hey, man, can you do me a favor?" You know, that's the way I talk, and that's the way he talks. Anyway, we have to be very careful on this. And Marlene, I'll leave you on the line. I want to play a clip of Susan Rice.
Okay. I remember that crazy woman.
And I want to set this clip up and say that she's on a podcast. Okay. Do I have backup paperwork on this? Turncoat. No. Screws in. No, I don't. But that doesn't. Wait, maybe I do. No, I don't. But anyway, Susan Rice, former ambassador to the United Nations and National Security Advisor, talking about Lindsey Graham. And she's talking with Tommy Vitor and another guy from the Clinton administration. It's got to be up here. Hold on. I think Tifa. Susan Rice calls Lindsey Graham with Tommy Vitor and Ben Rhodes. You remember Ben Rhodes of the Clinton?
That name's not familiar. Yes.
He's a Clinton guy.
Yes.
Clinton re-election thing. Let's listen to Susan Rice, Tommy Vitor, and advisor Ben Rhodes on Ben Rhodes' podcast that has tens of listeners.
You have to understand Benghazi to understand Trump.
Right, because Lindsey Graham isn't just a piece of shit now.
He's been a piece of shit.
Lindsey Graham.
I said it.
Yeah.
Damn it. Finally.
Yeah.
He's a piece of shit.
He's lying, and raising money off of the death of 4 Americans.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's my little speech. This Fox producer told you when you asked, how did I, Susan Rice, U.S. Ambassador to the UN, no oversight role over the embassy or the consulate in Benghazi or embassy security generally, how did I become the villain? And he said, individuals make great villains.
Right.
How did you receive that information?
Well, it was fascinating.
Yeah.
To have an inside perspective on how Fox operates. So he was even more, forthcoming than that. He said, look, Fox has this very deep bond with its viewers, knows how to energize and rile up its viewers, and making them angry is how they get ratings. And the way to make them angry is to create villains that they can target and vilify. And you always need fresh villains. And he explained how the original Fox villain was in fact Bill Clinton, and then Barney Frank and some others, and we were sort of new iterations.
Yeah, as a JV villain.
And Hillary, of course, became a major Fox villain.
Yeah.
But I had given them all the wherewithal, he explained, to be villainized because I'd given them 5 different sets of video on these shows.
Lied 5
and
times.
And they could loop them and they could turn me into a new
That's
villain.
right.
Now,
She's
on
a
Fox,
liar.
many years
She's a
later,
known liar
they just need to
herself.
say
Yeah,
my
it's
name
off.
and it's like, like people start twitching. It's it's like an automatic, trigger point.
It's 'cause you're a communist.
It was fascinating to learn from that person's point of view how they engage their viewers, and now you can see it playing out. And it's Trump is the master of it.
Yeah.
He makes people angry every day.
Yes, he does. Let me remind you who Tommy Vitor is. Tommy Vitor with Brett Baer.
You're talking about. According to the emails and the timeline, the CIA circulates new talking points after they've removed a mention of Al Qaeda.
Yeah.
And then at 6:21, the White House, add a line about the administration warning of September 10th of social media reports calling for demonstrations. True?
I believe so.
Did you also change attacks to demonstrations in the talking points?
Maybe. I don't really remember.
You don't remember?
Dude, this was like 2 years ago. We're still talking about the most mundane
it is the thing
process
that everybody is talking about.
We're talking about the process of editing talking points. That's what bureaucrats do all day long. Your producers edit scripts multiple times.
Attacks to demonstrations.
Yeah.
Did you do that?
No. What is the question? Did I edit
the CIA
attacks?
talking points? It was edited from attacks to demonstrations.
No, Michael Morales testified about what he changed.
Sal, to you first and then to Marlene. We're fighting against children. These are kids. They're not even serious adults. This Tommy Vitor, did you hear him in the interview? Did it have any resemblance to an interview that I would do? It's unbelievable.
Yeah, these are people that are just, I don't know what's going through their head. I do, but it's not for our well-being.
Marlene, are they children? I mean, does that sound like an American man to you? Or does it sound like a child that has been spoiled?
Sounds like a little spoiled brat in the high school or maybe just got into college. Complete spoiled brat.
That's the way I feel.
Susan Rice was a spoiled brat, too.
Absolutely.
She lied her.
She's not down with the struggle. She's eating caviar somewhere.
No, I'm sure she is. I've never even had caviar, although I've heard it's good.
Haven't you? Oh, I have. It's good.
No, I haven't. I've heard it's good. I have
It's really salty. It's really salty, and I'll just leave it at that.
That's what I've heard that. So who knows? Maybe I'll try someday when I win the lottery.
Better than roadkill. Better than roadkill.
Oh,
definitely
yes.
better than roadkill. For sure.
I was laughing my head off on that. That's hilarious.
Marlene, thanks for calling. Always appreciate it.
You're welcome.
All right, that's Marlene from Oregon. And just to close this out a little bit, Sal, I want to know, we've got a really, really communist mayor where we live.
Yes, we do.
See, you didn't think that I got this here. I did capture it.
I'm glad you did. I wanted to make sure that you saw that.
Did you realize in this story? And I'm gonna let you run with it now. I mean, we're over 10 o'clock, so as long as you want to run with it, that's how long we'll run with it. But the last story of the night is that we have an idiot in Pittsburgh. Now, let me set this up for the audience. I've lived all over Pennsylvania, not just Pittsburgh. And I am here to testify that there are two big cities. Well, no. There's 1.5 big cities in Pennsylvania. You have Philadelphia, which is a communist stronghold. And you have Pittsburgh, which used to be a big city, but it's not anymore. It's about 300,000 people. It's not very big. And then you've got the rest of Pennsylvania in the middle. And I'm here to tell you, because I've lived in all parts of this state. You have Pittsburgh and you have Philadelphia, a couple million people, and you have the rest of the state that hates both of them. But you have a radical communist mayor in Pittsburgh that thinks that as soon as he mentions taking people's weapons, it's going to work. And this dude's stupid because it's not going to work. Go ahead.
Yeah, just so, and everyone has a background on it if you heard it. We had an unfortunate criminal act happen last year here where a individual targeted
that did not live in the city.
Yeah, that did not live in the city and targeted a Jewish house of worship during their services, which is downright despicable. And I hope that justicism serves us well, and he sees his maker whenever that happens. But along with that, always a politician feels that they need to do something. Well, that something was to pass 3 local firearm regulation bills, including a red flag law. And
understanding that this dude did not even live in Pittsburgh, so it would have nothing to correct this problem.
And he quickly signed them into law. These laws on their face are illegal because in Pennsylvania we have a law that prohibits local municipalities from making their own laws because it would make it almost impossible to travel throughout the state because you'd have to guess which law applies to where, right, Hutch? I mean, how?
And understanding that 90% of the land mass of Pennsylvania is against this.
And right, we're not talking about roadkill. We're talking about people who actually hunt and eat, and a lot of them hunt all year round.
And forget that part. Forget that part. They support the Second Amendment. Let's not bring hunting into it. Hunting has nothing to do with this.
Right. I'm just saying that there are lawful gun owners.
Right.
And likely Second Amendment people are stalwart of the Second Amendment. But
who believe in America, sure.
Yeah, right. And so earlier this year, the mayor said he was hoping to enlist municipalities across the state to pass similar laws. And heck, I knew that this is exactly what it was. It was a launch. It was a balloon to see if everyone would hop on.
And did they?
Well, not yet.
Of course not.
Of course, because the expectation is they would be challenged by the NRA, and
forget the NRA. What? Now because I know where you live, and you live, and I'm not going to give you up here, but you live very close to the city of Pittsburgh, and this is the experience that people like me have. I live on the outskirts. I'm in the city.
Yeah, well, you know where I used to live.
I do. But now where you live, you have to understand the vehemently anti-gun control people that live next door to you. And you're only a couple miles outside the city.
Right.
And this is from there all the way east to the outskirts of Philadelphia. We're talking millions and millions of Pennsylvanians are gun people. They just are. We are. And to try to do something like this, like Bill Peduto, and ladies and gentlemen, let's not pretend that this is Bill Peduto. Bill Peduto is a little prick by himself. But he's got New York and Chicago behind him.
Yeah, and so, these are his words, and this is a quote. I think if we're successful, you're going to see hundreds of cities, similar legislation being proposed. So that's the end game. The end game is they want to be a pioneer and a groundbreaker.
And how is it working? How's it working out for them?
It's not working out too well. No one's really hopped on that bandwagon.
That's lovely.
I think there's also been similar legislation that was introduced into Harrisburg as our state.
Oh, it's not going to work in Harrisburg. That's the one thing we have going for us, ladies and gentlemen, in Pennsylvania. Harrisburg, no matter how they try to spin it, is a rural community. Or at the very least, a suburban community. It's not a big city. It's a little village that's more insignificant than Pittsburgh is. And Pittsburgh is insignificant when it comes to political clout. Let me just tell you that. It's true. Whether you like it or not, it's true.
It is, but we still have to keep our eyes on issues like this.
That's
and we need to make people aware that there are people out there that are trying to put up this type of legislation, see if it gets some legs, and then other people will start to run with it. So I knew this was a test balloon. I knew this is what they ultimately wanted to do. It's despicable. It's anti-American. It's anti-Constitution.
There's no question. And thank you for bringing that. I mean, I like to have a little local bent on some of this stuff every now and then. I can't do it all the time. But Bill Peduto is a big, fat moron. That's the way it is, man. And this isn't going to work. I have faith in the American people, Sal. And I'm sure you do too. Or you wouldn't be on this show. Any final comments? What a great show tonight.
Thank you for bringing on our guest tonight. That was fantastic.
Thank Mona.
Mona, you're an all-star. I already know that, and she knows that too. Stacy, fantastic questions. Hutch, thanks for having me here. And everybody, you can reach me on Twitter at Sal at CWR at SALATCWR. All right, Hutch.
Have you had a good club sandwich lately?
Not really. However, though, let me tell you, I have been eating a little bit more bread. So you know what? I'm gonna have one. I'm gonna have one this weekend. How about that?
Hey, go down there to Kelly O's. That's my new joint, Kelly O's down in the Strip. My son and I started eating breakfast there. Anyway, thanks, Sal, for everything that you do, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for stopping by for a couple hours. We went over a little bit, but Hey, you got to do that every now and then. I apologize for my expletives that I did not delete, but not really. I don't give a damn. It's the way it is. You piss me off, I'm going to sound like I'm pissed off. Cold War Radio, ladies and gentlemen, will catch you on Friday with Jack. Hey, how about those Nationals? I'm getting ready to go check out the rest of the World Series. Go to SteelCityResistance.com, ladies and gentlemen. You like the show? Support the show. Become a Cold War Radio patron. Go to rsbnmusic.bandcamp.com and please support Jacob Seals. Listen to this music, man. That's some good stuff. Thanks for coming out, everybody. I'm Hutch Bailey Jr. We'll be back on Friday. God bless.
According to the emails and the timeline, the CIA circulates new...